Randy Crabtree here, recording a video from day 2 of Bridging the Gap Conference in Rosemont, Illinois. Super excited. We've had a great event so far, and one of the awesome speakers that we had yesterday was Roman Villard. So Roman did a presentation on next-gen culture, which is a huge, not in the title of the conference, but a huge theme and a huge passion of mine. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be in this conference, so he's going to do it for me today in a 60-minute presentation in 10 minutes. So Roman, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Absolutely. I missed you at our session. But I understand there was competing obligations with a session on automation, so I don't blame you at all.
I wasn't even in the automation session. I was sitting here interviewing somebody, so
good. That's fair.
That's why I wasn't in there. But in fact, I didn't even get a chance to walk in either for a minute. And believe me, I was not happy about it. So you and I have done a webinar before on culture. Mm-hmm. Culture is super important to you. Culture is super important to me.
Yeah.
Can you give me the recap of what you discussed yesterday, and then feedback you got as well?
Yeah, happy to. So I spent a lot of time looking at data on Gen Z and what's important to Gen Z in the workplace, and then a lot of studying on culture and how to develop it and what it is. And there's so many different definitions of what it is and how to build it. And at the end of the day, it's living, it's breathing, it's something that is unique to each organization. And so a big part of culture is your values and how your values seep through the organization, how you communicate them, how your team talks about them, how you incentivize, how you build an environment around the things that are most important to you, right? That's not unique, right? That is just, it's a fact that the values permeate culture. It's not the ping pong table. It's not the word cloud on the wall. Those are the two examples I use predominantly. And so what's interesting is that when you look at the data on Gen Z, there's a statistic that I used that said 91% of Gen Zers evaluate technology as a core element of where they want to work. So they're looking at the tech stack that's being used. So if you look at the values and how that influences organization, yet 91% of Gen Zers are looking at the tech stack being used in a firm, that's an indicator to me that in order to build an effective culture, the technology that you use matters. Mm-hmm. And so while we didn't spend a lot of time talking about the ping pong table in the office, we spent a lot of time talking about technology and how that can influence and build a culture. And so when you think about things like that, we talked about building a firm wiki, a database of information that allows your team to access information, how they need to digest it, where they need to find it, all these different elements of creating ease of access to the things that they have in their personal life through their device in their pocket. Because every Gen Zer grew up with a device and instant access to information. So if you have an environment that doesn't have that similar level of visibility and transparency to the things that people need to get their jobs done, there's no way to bridge that gap.
Oh, nice one. Nice one.
Yeah, so that's a high level.
So first, and understand I know nothing, Gen Z, define what, is there an age range, a years born? What is the Gen Z generation?
Yeah, so 96. Okay. 96 to, I'm not sure where it cuts off. Every younger than 96 is a Gen Z to me, but I think we moved into alpha generation in 2020s maybe.
Okay, and then what are you?
I'm a millennial. I'm a proud millennial.
You're a millennial. And what's millennial age group then? I'm just curious.
83 to 96.
Okay, so I was curious because I was wondering. My kids are millennials then.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So what I got out of what you just said, there's a lot there. I won't get into it deeper, but I think we do a poor job in the profession with integrating the technology that we should be integrating. And so that alone can be a reason that potentially we are not at least retaining or even attracting people.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that happens, this is my personal opinion, is that this is a great profession and people do well in this profession. And so why change? And why put more pressure on me to integrate this technology when I just made $700,000 last year. Why am I going to change anything?
Yeah.
Well, because if you're going to bring the next generation, and if you want to attract them, if you want them to be retained, you need to do that. I don't.
Totally.
Opinion on that?
I do. So let's go first to the millennial side of things. So for me, I observed those that went into the workforce before I did, and that's just how work was. It was hard to find information. You had to spend a lot of your time going to different people to get it. And there was more of an emphasis on, is there fulfillment in the work that you're doing? Yes, no, indifferent. As an auditor in public accounting, there wasn't a whole lot of fulfillment. However, I like the people that I worked with.
I didn't mean to go, for audit.
Yeah.
I'm not an auditor.
No,
That's
I
why
get
I did
it.
that.
I get
so.
it. It's even worse for tax. So.
Okay.
So there was this element of hey, is the work you're doing fulfilling? That was the question. And as an employee, you're like, well, I think so. I hope so. And then there's the second element of millennials just entrusting their employers to reward them for the things that they thought they were doing right. And so it's okay, I trust you that you're going to do the right thing by me, whether it's compensation or career progression.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily exist with Gen Z. So when you think about the technology and how that's influencing how Gen Z moves within corporate structures, if you think about how this generation grew up with information at the access of the fingertips, being able to have ChatGPT.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
When you now get into a corporate environment where that's not the case, there's this distancing of access from their personal lives to the professional lives that's kind of unacceptable for this generation. So where I came into the workforce and was like, oh, this is just how things are done, and I've just got to kind of assimilate to this culture.
Right.
Gen Z is like, no. I can find a better environment that allows me to have the same level of access to detail that I need to get my job done as I do in my personal life.
Right.
If you don't create parity between those two things, your ability to then influence your culture through your values within that technology that you use is going to be very challenging.
All right, I get it. We are in the middle of doing a satisfaction survey in the profession right now. We're going to be sharing results in about 2 hours or so. Preliminary results, but it's based on over 150 responses at this point. And one thing you said, the fulfillment factor, what we're seeing on the initial results is if you're happy with what you're doing, if what you do satisfies you, a lot of the other things don't matter.
Yeah.
It's 60 hours a week doesn't matter when I really enjoy and I'm fulfilled with the work I do, which surprised me. I don't want people working 60 hours a week. But that is coming out in the satisfaction survey. So things like that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
a quick response to that. So there's a Harvard Business Review study done on happiness in the workplace. And it pointed to, if you find fulfillment, I believe the number was 20%. If you find fulfillment in 20% of the actual work that you do, then your whole job is, you feel fulfillment through you having that job.
Wow. Just 20%.
20%.
That's you've heard me say this. That reminds me of the John Garrett statistic. Have I said this before?
Yeah.
If you have 3 close friends at work, you are more satisfied with your life.
Yeah.
It was 96% of people that say they have 3 close friends. So, but 20% fulfillment and the whole job. We should be able to get to that.
You would think, right?
Yeah.
And so as an employer myself, I think about that statistic a lot, because I'm like, how are we enabling people to find fulfillment in their work, knowing that there are a lot of elements of the work that we do that may not necessarily drive fulfillment.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it is accounting. There are things that today are challenging, are not fun, that are just things that we have to do as part of our job.
But what do you think about the fact that identifying those things, because everybody can identify the things they don't like. You would think so, because you know when you're excited to work on something, you know when you're not.
Yeah.
And I know you started your firm a few years ago, 2 years ago, and we didn't even talk about that yet. I want to get into that, but you started a few years ago, 2 years ago now, and how many people?
11.
11. That's amazing. That's awesome. But those 11 have to do multiple things.
Yeah.
What I want to see happen is allowing people to identify those things they have passion for and enjoy, someone else might enjoy the things that they don't enjoy. Let's figure that out. Let's talk to people. Let's say, well, tell me what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah.
Start integrating that. But also, I think we have an opportunity to outsource things. Okay, hey, I'm going to have to pay more money for someone to do something. I'm going to increase the satisfaction level of the people in my firm if that happens. Is that something that's crossed your mind to do things like that? Is it possible, you think?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. There are two, maybe three tactical ways that I think you can do this. One, we have a survey, a form that goes out to every new employee, and we'll do this on an annualized basis to say, hey, are there areas within this firm that you feel like you personally excel in, whether it's operational or other elements of the work that we do, that we should be aware of? And then similarly, are there roles or types of work, a direction for you that you want for your career that makes sense for you 3 years from now, 5 years from now? So we want to develop some sort of benchmarking for each employee to understand how can we be articulating their career journey to drive most satisfaction to them. So that's one way. The other way, when you talk about these mundane tasks, when you talk about maybe offshoring some work, we have a hackathon every year. So this year our hackathon is actually this Friday, and it's a day that we dedicate to identifying what are the most repetitive, non-value add, boring tasks that just drive you up the wall. Because it's going to happen no matter how automated you are or aren't.
Right.
There are going to be those things that your team is doing. And so we want to make sure that the team feels capable of bringing those things up and comfortable talking about them, so we can ideate together on how to minimize that workload for them, so that we can put them in a position to work on the types of clients, the types of industries, or the type of work that they want to do in the firm. It's not just hey, we do a hackathon and it's all fixed. We still need to take action on that feedback. But it allows us to stack rank what are those things that we need to prioritize when it comes to changing how our staff team is made up or where we need to automate. There's a lot of ways to do that, but those are two ways that we've thought about it.
So when do I get to come work with you?
We're hiring. We would love to bring you on board. I'm not sure that we'd be able to afford you, but we can talk about it.
As long as I'm passionate, it doesn't matter. Whatever. If you find a place I'm passionate about, I'm there. So.
One thing I'll say on that, though, so it's one thing to put out to the market, hey, we've got a great culture. It's another thing to build a great culture. Those are two very different things. That said, one thing that we candidly struggle with is that we are an environment for players. We have a high bar for our team from a professionalism, from a work product standpoint. And so we're working through how do we best communicate? We don't settle. Our work expectation is here. Yet we also want to have this really fun culture. So we have to balance those things really well.
I can
not to say
understand
that you're
that
not
could be
a
a
player, Randy. We'd love to have you interview.
I'm not a player. So you don't want me now. Unless you want somebody to just talk all the time. I can do that.
That's what I do, right?
Exactly. You already got that role covered. All right. So I'd love to go on talking about this all day because you and I can do it, and we've done it on a webinar before and other podcasts before, and this is a subject we're both passionate about. I appreciate you. You don't understand how much and what you're doing. And I am super excited to watch the development of your firm. I'm going to continue doing that because the way that you're looking at people, it's not client first, client first, client first. Clients are service because your people come first. I am super excited about that, and I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.